There's been a lot of talk in the news about EVs lately. That talk is not what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about today is where EVs are going. That's of interest to retailers across the country as they plan out how they're going to build their forecourts. Joining us today is John Eichberger. He is Executive Director of the Transportation Energy Institute, frequent guest, frequent host, and always appreciate when he can join us. So thanks for joining us today, John.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Jeff. I appreciate it.
So I mentioned in the beginning, EVs by brand have been in the news of note of a lot lately. That's not what we're going to talk about today, because we're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about anything that is just a certain news cycle. What we want to talk about is two things going on with EVs. One is Transportation Energy Institute came out with an update to a look at the life cycle analysis. So we'll start with that, and that's going to have an impact in how perhaps various locations look at mandates with emission standards, et cetera. And then we'll also kind of get a little bit more into some of the charging analytics that TEI is doing now, Transportation Energy Institute. So we'll have some cross mix there and just a discussion on EVs and the state of EVs right now, what it means to our industry. So let's just start with this new report that the Transportation Energy Institute just came out with around life cycle. And you want to kind of tee that one up?
Yeah, so we had done a much larger study comparing the life cycle emissions of a combustion vehicle, battery vehicle, and hybrid vehicle about 3 years ago. And when I say life cycle, what we're really trying to do is look at emissions wherever they occur, from the oil field to the lithium mine to the steel factory, all the way through production, distribution, utilization, end of life. The desire to reduce emissions has not gone away. Some of the messaging from Washington has changed. We all know that. But when we talk to our members, there's still this consistency that Washington's one factor. The shift in priority of the White House does not change global objectives to reduce carbon emissions, reduce criteria pollutant emissions. And so what we really wanted to do with this paper is remind all stakeholders, and we started this last fall, remind all stakeholders that if we're really serious about reducing emissions, we have to reduce emissions in a way that is economically sustainable. Because if you make an investment to reduce emissions and you can't afford to continue with that investment, you're not going to stop emissions. And so we really want to look at where in the cycle and remind people that you can look at any point of that life cycle. If there's emissions and you can affordably or even profitably invest to reduce emissions, that's a positive. Unfortunately, our regulations aren't always structured that way. Most of the vehicle regulations are tailpipe. They don't care if you have a low carbon fuel. But the reality is a low carbon fuel benefits the environment as much as a low emitting tailpipe. And so we really just want to remind people we have to look at this as a system, not in a tunnel vision of just one technology, one point of time. We really need to use all of our resources. And when we do that, we can actually create economic opportunity that at the same time benefits the environment. That it requires a much more comprehensive assessment. So that's why we did this paper, just to remind people of that opportunity.
Yeah, so you mentioned tailpipe, and that's, I think people just look at things very simply, whether they're just having a discussion about the issue or whether they're making decisions on the issue that affect policy. It's like, well, it's almost like Spinal Tap. That goes to 11. So, they think a little bit more broadly, and life cycle means a lot of things. So if the goal is low emissions, this is how you need to think about this. And this has an impact, not just, as you mentioned, for policy that is determined in Washington, but policy that is determined possibly around the world and definitely in states, because this can affect some of these zero emission policies or can inform the zero emissions mandates that have come up on various state levels.
So one of the things that we've always talked about is politicians like simplicity. They like something that resonates with their audience. So when we're talking about reducing carbon emissions, addressing climate change, if that's your priority, it is really easy as a elected official to tell your constituents, hey, those emissions from the tailpipe, they're causing climate change. So we're going to get rid of tailpipes. I just solved the problem. And
30-second commercial, because that's all you have.
Right. And even the most incapable politician can remember two letters, EV, right? And so it became this self-fulfilling prophecy that simplicity yields relatability to the audience. EV became zero-emission vehicle, became the answer to climate change. EVs have huge opportunity, great qualities. They're not zero. And when you think about a life cycle, if you are only focused on that technology solution in the vehicle, you've just negated all innovation opportunities to actually make a meaningful difference to the environment. And so when we did our study 3 years ago, we found that electric vehicles, on average, over 200,000 mile life, are about 41% lower in carbon emissions than comparable combustion vehicles. 41% is not zero.
Right.
It's not even half better. And so we have to do better. We have to look at the energy the vehicles consume, because 2/3 or 3/4 of the energy of the emissions for both the combustion and then the electric vehicle come from the energy they consume. If we don't focus on the liquid fuel and the electricity, we're never going to move the needle on emissions. And so that's another reason why we publish the papers, just to kind of reset people's thinking is, okay, how are we going to address the big problems facing the market? You got to do it comprehensively. You have to do it with eyes wide open. You quote movies, I quote songs, right? And you've got to get to higher ground. See, you're going to keep going out, right?
Oh, Stevie, well done.
Yeah, or Red Hot Chili Peppers if you prefer.
Okay, so when we talk about what you're saying is, and I remember when the first iteration of this came out a couple of years ago, one of the things that was mentioned is you talk about EVs. EVs are run on electricity, and electricity is sometimes produced by less environmentally friendly sources, say coal, and so not to go in any kind of discussion and say the yeah but discussion, but kind of walk us through each of these life cycle things and each of the four factors and how it can manifest itself in intelligent discussions going forward about here's another thing we can look at. It may not be something that you want to do today, but if you want to get to where you want to go, you got to start looking this way.
So again, like I said, 3/4 of our emissions come from the energy. So let's focus where we can have the biggest impact. If electric vehicles continue to gain market share, which I am convinced they will, even without federal incentives, they're going to continue to gain market share. Now we have to clean the electricity grid. We have to get to carbon capture at coal plants, because the coal plants aren't going away tomorrow. We have to incentivize or create an economic return for using renewable natural gas in our natural gas power plants. We should continue investing in solar and wind where it makes sense. We have to reduce that carbon intensity of the electricity grid if electric vehicles are going to be part of the solution. I believe they will be. But at the same time, there are 280 million, almost 300 million vehicles in the United States that run on liquid fuel. We have unbelievable opportunities. We can deploy technology or renewable energy solutions at the oil field. We can do that at the refinery. We can use advanced agriculture practices on the farm that creates the corn and soybeans for ethanol and biodiesel and renewable diesel. We can do all of that, and we can have a meaningful impact on the emissions profile of liquid fuel we sell without forcing the consumer to make any changes. We just have to figure out how do we layer our opportunities and compound their benefits. If we have a low carbon liquid petroleum, because we've done the right things at the oil field and the petroleum refinery, we combine it with a low carbon ethanol at 15% instead of 10%. Maybe we use a little renewable gasoline, which is a byproduct of renewable diesel. Maybe use a little e-fuels if they become economically viable, which we think they could long term. Now you're looking at a maybe 40, 50% carbon reduction in the gasoline that we're using. Maybe you put that into a hybrid vehicle, which is 29% cleaner than an ICE vehicle. Now you're in a situation where the EV is second run in emissions reduction. And we've done a huge opportunity. We've made a huge difference to the environment. We've done a huge difference to the market. We've created opportunities for innovation and investment that has a return on investment. We just have to be open to these options. And anybody who is trying to force a silver bullet, one type of solution, they're missing the whole purpose here. The purpose is lower emissions, more environmentally sensitive transportation sector. That requires everybody to be at the table finding innovative solutions. And that's what we hope a life cycle approach will support.
So bottom line is, with this report, you're unlike a lot of things that go on today. You're not saying, well, yeah, what about? What you're saying is, hey, if you feel this is a good idea and something we should focus on that. Plus also, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and you're talking about and, not or. And it is all additive, and there's a lot of runway ahead of us in looking at how do we take these solutions and move them forward and start looking at different things. Tailpipe important. I know I sounded like Tarzan there. No verb, but tailpipe important. But there's also all these other things that are important. So let's keep looking at all of this. And by the way, the Transportation Energy Institute is the group to talk to keep looking about this, because you do have the breadth of knowledge and you do have the breadth of different perspectives that want to take on problems and move them forward.
And I think you summed up the whole issue very well. So many times you get in a conversation with somebody who thinks they know the answer, and you present other information, and their response is, yeah, but.
Yeah.
We are, and we strive to be a yes, and also, because there's a place in the market for electric vehicles. There's a place in the market for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. There's a place in the market for natural gas vehicles, diesel vehicles, gasoline vehicles, ethanol, biodiesel, renewable diesel. There's a place in the market. Not all drivers, not all vehicles, not all purposes are the same. And if we focus on those unique differences and develop solutions that work and reduce emissions, there's going to be very little resistance to adopting those solutions. It's when you try to go square peg, round hole. So I can do Tarzan too.
Yeah.
That's when we run into problems. That's when you get into the yeah, but we need to become a yes and also. And then we can really make some difference.
So I had mentioned about how TEI just has a wealth of information. And let's talk a little bit about some of that information that you have available. Now, you and I have both been NACS connected for 2+ decades. And fuels has been the number one conversation, starting at NACS for you, moving to TEI, me still for NACS. And it's, why are gas prices going up? Why are they not going down, et cetera? And we've always focused on, we need to have ironclad information. And I'll tell people, go to the TEI website. You have a good blog talking about seeking sources of truth. Now, the reason I mention that, and this is the setup to talking about your EV charging analytics, is you are only as reliable as the sources that you use. And if you are incredible or uncredible in the sources that you use, the numbers that you cite, it catches up to you.
Yep.
So as the blog goes through and talks about some of these great third-party sources of information. Take a look at that. There's some good stuff there in terms of what TEI follows. But TEI probably has the best information on charging analytics. Walk us through. It's really impressive, the breadth of understanding that you have on people who charge, who they are and what they do, and why it matters to anybody that's looking to service EVs.
Yeah, so we had launched our Electric Vehicle Council about 5 years ago. And our Electric Vehicle Council is designed to help create or support the development of market opportunities that deliver a business return for EV chargers. There's been a lot of money thrown around by the government. That money is being cut off right now in the new administration, which really clarifies that we need to have a legitimate business case to justify the investment of fast chargers. About 2 years ago, we started developing our charging analytics program. It's fully up and running now. And through December 2024, we were collecting around 2.8 million sessions of EV charging sessions a month. And so basically, when you plug in your vehicle from like thousands of chargers, we would get data on that session, not kilowatt hours delivered, still working on that. But we know how frequently chargers are used, where they're being used, the market types they're being used in, which chargers near which amenities, be they a convenience store or a highway ramp, whether they're 300 kilowatts, 100 kilowatts, 50 kilowatts. We have insight into how that data, how those chargers are being used, when, how frequently. As of January 2025, we have increased our acquisition of data. We're at 7 to 7.5 million charging sessions a month. We have in our database data coming in representing 2/3 of all the DC fast chargers in the United States. And that gives us insight. We have average dwell time. How long is somebody parked and charging their vehicle? We have that. Is it within 100 meters of a convenience store or restaurant, fast food station? We have it where we have taken the counties in the United States, we have organized them based upon their demographic and market characteristics, and now you can do comparable benchmarking. If I'm in Prince William County, Virginia, okay, which counties are like my county on income, on population, on density, on number of EVs per person? Okay, show me counties that are similar. What are chargers doing in those counties? Oh, and by the way, I'm a convenience retailer. So what are chargers near convenience stores in those markets doing? And how are they performing? Can I learn something about real world actual experience and apply it to my strategy? So many companies out there are doing forecasts and projections and demand scenarios for you. We don't get into that. We're looking at real data, historic data, and trying to tease out insights that can help businesses make real informed decisions about their investment dollars. And you're right, I don't think there's anybody out there doing this type of analysis. And it really does provide some incredible insights. We're just now starting to peel back the onion on this extra 5 million chargers. Just started looking at this the other day. And I'm excited that we're going to have that type of insight.
Well, just earlier we were talking about tailpipe emissions, and the former thinking that is incorrect is emissions, as I said, not using a verb, emissions, tailpipe, that's it. Bad. And it's way, way bad. And it's way, way more complicated than that. And my initial presumption with EVs is somebody parks their car, and then one of two things happens once they're plugging in. Either they stay in their car for the entire charging session, or they go inside the facility of the place with a charger. And I think what your data and analysis has shown is there's a third option that I think most people didn't even think of. And that's they park their car, they go, but they don't go to that place. They go to another place to get coffee, to get something to eat, to do something like that. So looking at those dynamics, I think also opens up the question, if you have charging, how are you keeping them there for those items inside the store beyond charging?
So in our data set, we do geolocation. So we know the latitude, longitude of all the chargers. We know the latitude, longitude of all the businesses. And so there may be a charger that is on a convenience store property. There may be a charger next to a convenience store property. If they're within 100 meters, we're evaluating them as co-located. Because of that bleed over, if you're within 100 meters of a store while charging your car, you may go to that store. And so what the insights tell us is, I just pulled it up now, the average through last year, on average, people are spending about 40 to 42 minutes charging their vehicle. Now, anecdotally, I hear 20 to 25. I don't do anecdotes. I have the real numbers, right? And the DC fast chargers that are located at 100 meters of a convenience and fuel station, each port is being used around 140 to 150 times a month. Now, if there's 8 ports, that's about 1,000 visits.
That's pretty good.
If there's 1,000 visits at 40 minutes a visit, what are you doing to capture that opportunity? And again, it may not be on your property, but if it's next door, there's a huge opportunity. You have somebody has to kill 40 minutes. What are you doing? Are you helping them? Are you giving them an opportunity to do something other than sit in their car? And I think that's the mindset we really want to get out there. Making money on charging is hard. It is really hard. We have to find those ancillary sales that go with charging. And this data tells me there is a huge opportunity here. And we're still, keep in mind, we are less than 2% of vehicles in operation are electric in this country. This is not a mature industry by any stretch of imagination, regardless of what some advocates may want you to think. But we have got a long way to go. The state with the most registered vehicle, EV registered vehicles as a percent of total vehicles is California. And California is sitting at, look at the data here, it's sitting like 4%, 4.3% of vehicles in operation in California are EV. Yep.
It's 1 in 25.
You and I did a survey a couple years ago. People thought 25% of vehicles in operation were electric.
Yeah. Instead, it's 1 in 25.
Right. And we've got 1,000 charging sessions on average per month within 100 meters of a convenience store. Come on. As the market grows, that number is only going to go up. We, as an industry, putting my old NACS hat on, we have to be prepared to service those customers and make them loyal convenience store customers. Convert those charging events to trips inside the store. And that's what we're trying to do, is create a vision and a reality check of what are the opportunity. It may not be a threat, or maybe, but you can take a threat and turn it into an opportunity if you're paying attention and being strategic about it. That's what we're trying to do.
So 10 years ago, when we were talking about EVs and what retailers might do, one of the things we said is put in that conduit so that you don't have to crack concrete. Gives you some options on where to put things. There was also a lot of discussion in those early days about where do you put the chargers. There's some challenges with putting them at the forecourt because of fire regulations state by state. Do you put them in front of the store? Maybe not, because those are blocked for 40 minutes when you want to have customers come in and out. You want to have that volume turnover with people go inside the store. So the default has largely been, we have this property that's on this area that's on the outskirts of our property. Let's put the chargers there. It's an by the way location. And I think what some of your data could indicate is when you treat it as an by the way part of your business, people will treat your business as an by the way, and they will either stay in their car, or if it so happens that another place is closer to the charger than your place, they're going to go there. So what are you doing at that charging location, or what can you do at that charging location is probably the better question, to incent that person to do something inside your store for that 40 minutes that is occurring during that charging.
We published a paper in 2024, I think it was early 24, where we reported survey results. We surveyed drivers, we surveyed EV drivers and asked them, what are you looking for in a charging location? And we identified the top priorities that they're looking for. Then we also surveyed and interviewed charging operators and asked them, what are you offering? Then we compared the two. We are not satisfying the driver interest. By and large, EV charging stations are not hitting the mark. And so we need to really pay attention to what that customer wants. Safety is number one. They are going to be there 40 minutes. They want to feel safe. Mm-hmm. They want to have amenities. They definitely want a bathroom. We have to tailor our design and our offer to match the customer's interests, because the market's going to get more competitive. There are some people think EVs are dead because the new administration in Washington doesn't like them. Well, at least part of them don't like them, and they're eliminating incentives. 2/3 of all electric vehicles sold in 24 did not have a federal incentive associated with them. 2/3. Now, is that because the buyer made too much money to qualify, or the vehicle didn't have enough made in America parts to qualify? I don't know the cause of that, but this is Department of Treasury data. 2/3 did not get a federal incentive. So get rid of the federal incentive, okay. It's still a growing market. People still like these vehicles. There are new vehicles coming on that are fantastic. And so I believe that the EV market is going to grow. Maybe not as fast as it would have under the Biden administration if those policies had continued, but it's still going to grow organically. And that really gives the convenience industry an opportunity to take a deep breath. Okay, we're not under the gun. We're not chasing federal dollars anymore. We are actually looking at, what does my market need? What do my customers want? And how do I serve my customers? And you've heard me say this before. Your customer comes in, buys a tank of gas today, buys a cup of coffee and a sandwich or something else, then leaves. And that weekend they buy an electric vehicle. Are they still your customer? I certainly hope so. So what do they need? And service that customer too. You service the person, not the vehicle. So what does your customer need? And take care of them. You'll be okay.
So we're talking about the analytics. If you have a charging location, if you want to have a charging location, if you are in any way interested in EV charging, this information is available. So how can people find out more about how they can use it? What is available that is for everyone? What is available for customization?
So we're going to have a report come out here in a few weeks, and we're in the middle of March now, so sometime in early April, that is really analyzing the performance over the 2024 timeframe. That will be free, first round, to give you an idea of what we're looking at. We're looking for input from the market. What else can we do? What other insights, perspectives, comparisons would be helpful? Then we'll convert that into subscription base. That'll be quarterly. But we're also going to have a public report that kind of gives a bigger picture, and that'll always be free. But bottom line is we're going to be sharing a lot of data, especially with the convenience industry, with NACS. So NACS can showcase to its members what's really happening at chargers in their convenience stores. And if people have questions, go to transportationenergy.org, reach out to us. Happy to talk. There's a lot of ways to provide access to data, to provide access to custom analytics. Our goal is to support the market and provide the resources we can. And we've looked at a couple numbers. There are so many ways to look at the data. And I geek out weekly just trying to find new ways to tease out insights. I may be becoming more of a nerd than I've ever been, and that's okay with me. I'm at that age, and who cares?
Yeah, exactly. So you had mentioned online. There's a lot of ways to geek out on what is going on today and where the future is taking us. There's also an event that is coming up, May 19th to 21st, San Antonio, the Transportation Energy Institute annual conference. And it's EVs, it's fuels, it's vehicles, it's the present, it is the future, and it is the best event if you care about the transportation space from all angles to go and learn and connect. So anything else you want to add to that plug?
On that, for TEI 25, we're really taking a look at what are the fundamentals in the market. There is so much uncertainty with regard to policy and leadership and what the vehicle manufacturers are going to do with new policies. We really want to take, and our entire agenda is set up to say, okay, policy is one thing. What's the market telling us? What are the drivers that will create successful opportunities in the transportation energy market? And that's where we really want to create a foundation of understanding. We can all get caught up in the roller coaster of headlines and announcements. But where we have always tried to strive at TEI is, okay, that's all nice, that's all shiny, that's all great cocktail chatter. What really matters? And that's where we're going to go. We're going to drive home where is the market and what are the true fundamentals that may influence the direction of that going forward that could affect your business.
So whether you like to geek out over transportation-related numbers or whether you want to define how the future of transportation will define your future, it's either online, Transportation Energy Institute, or in person, TEI 25, May 19th to 21 in San Antonio. And of course, you go to the TEI website to find out more about that, so it's kind of more online. But either way, you're going to see John, you're going to talk to John, and he's guiding this. So thanks for joining us once again today, John.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Always a good conversation. Talk to you later.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.